cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up blessed every morning. Just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it. Cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up blessed every morning.
Hey guys, welcome back to What's the Situation? On today's episode, we're going to be talking about family and friend relationships, and I have brought my good friend Bianca here today. Bianca actually started working for Catherine and I about 2 years ago, but we've become like really great friends over the last 2 years. We just have very similar personalities and get along so well. But let's jump into the situation room. So I was browsing things that had happened today. Now, there's some crazy stuff. One, the girl from Gossip Girl, Georgina, what was her name again?
Michelle Trachtenberg.
She died.
I'm shocked.
I'm like, she was 39 years old.
Horrific.
That is. Like, it's just crazy to me. But I really loved her in Gossip Girl.
I loved her in Eurotrip, and the OGs know.
I don't think I ever watched that.
Well, you need to,
Yeah,
because it's the best.
That's just like crazy to think that someone who is just a little bit older than us is like not here anymore.
It's the scariest part.
Like, another thing that I was looking at was a woman, a content creator, was arrested for urinating in a grocery store multiple times, recorded herself, posted the stuff, and then was shocked that she got arrested. How?
She's not well.
Bitch, you're a dirty little hamster.
A dirty little hamster.
In fact, I think Sterling's hamster Flash was cleaner than that.
I don't understand how you record yourself, post it, and then think that people are not going to be like, what the fuck are you doing?
I know. I don't get that.
I don't get that either.
And especially when you're talking about like food and like grocery
yeah.
things, like what would you do if you saw that happening?
I would fucking be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, she's getting her
Don't
ass
you
beat.
piss on my carrots?
I mean, it's so unsanitary. It's just like, it's just weird. I just don't understand why people
You can
just
say and get your ass beat, or say
say
and
get your ass beat. Like, it just makes no sense.
People are disgusting now.
It reminds me of that Target one with the influencer that was stealing all that shit from Target. Remember? She like posted that video
Oh, yeah.
of all the stuff that she fucking stole.
People are just not that intelligent anymore. I think people just think they're above.
I think so too, because if you record yourself doing a crime and then post it on the internet, I mean, what?
Duh.
Like you are a dodo if you think
You are really dumb.
for real.
So those two things just kind of stuck out to me. But we have such a really heavy episode with some of the other topics. And a couple people wrote in for Help Me Sid. What's your situation? People wanted to know what our take was on long distance relationships.
I feel like for me, there's different kinds of long distance relationships. I feel like it's one thing if like you're already in a committed relationship with somebody and your partner moves away for work or some kind of opportunity, family troubles, or something.
Yeah.
And then you have those people who meet literally like online, who live in two separate places and become in relationships. And I mean, I think the longevity of those two situations are different.
I think when you meet online and you're doing a long distance relationship, the odds are stacked against you. With long distance, you have to put the time and effort in.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got to make things a priority.
Mm-hmm. Or it ain't gonna work.
It's not going to work. And I was in a long distance relationship. And at some point, somebody's got to move.
Yeah.
And I currently have a friend who is in a long distance relationship, and they're moving across the US
Literally.
for this. And I think there's just a different pressure when you do something like that, especially when you don't have any family support out wherever you're going. If it's just you, I think when times go bad, you become bitter.
I mean, you don't have a support system. I think having a support system, especially in a relationship, but especially in a long distance relationship, or where, let's say, you move for that person, like you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
It's just you and your partner. And I feel like that's where things can really unravel, because you don't know. I think people have this huge misconception of you're talking and you're saying things, you're talking on the phone, you're texting, but when you're in real life and the day-to-days, it's a totally different ballgame. And you really, truly don't know somebody until you are in the trenches day to day with them.
Well, and I think there's two takes on this. So there's like moving to that city,
Yeah.
but you're not living together. And I think that's a better tactic of like slowly getting to know each other.
I would
or
agree.
better on like that level. I don't care if you guys have been dating for 2 years, a year, you just don't know someone until you are with them constantly.
And at least you have a backup in case
Yeah.
something, let's say, does go awry. You have your own place. You're not tied to a lease with them for 18 months.
It's so insane to me when you barely know somebody.
Oh.
But I think the other thing is like long distance relationships, if you're going to live long distance, and I know a couple of people have done this for several years, and it just always is like, I'm sorry, but like if you and Matt are going out and you're like, hey, do you want to come with me? I want to live a life with my partner. I don't want to
Agreed.
be like, you are never here. I'm living my own life. You're living your life. And then like, yeah, when you guys get together, no shit, it's going to be amazing because you haven't seen each other for a fucking
And
month.
God knows how long.
You know,
Yeah.
let's say like you guys see each other a month or even like twice a month. One, that gets really fucking expensive very quickly. And I just don't think it's sustainable. And I don't think it's beneficial unless you're someone who doesn't have to have someone or see somebody all the time. But it's like, I don't want to sit there and have like my relationship on a text or FaceTime. I want to be able to experience life day to day, not just on these amazing trips where you're going places.
No, I definitely agree. And I also think too, not everybody can be in a long distance relationship. I feel like you have to be very secure in yourself because you have to obviously trust this person through and through because you're not there to see what's going on. So if you're a very insecure person or you've had trauma in your past relationships with cheating or lying, that might not be the way to go.
Think it's difficult. I think it can be done. I know a couple of people who have had really successful ones, but they were very disciplined. Like they were long view people. They weren't like, okay, well, I need to have this right now. They were very established in their careers and busy doing their work stuff. And it was like a 2-hour long distance, like more mid distance.
Not that bad.
2.5.
Yeah.
3.
No. Yeah. I know somebody who has dabbled in long distance I can't even say this without cracking the
dabbled and failed.
Has dabbled in long distance relationships on more than one occasion. And on both of these occasions, the person was not a good person.
It didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
Shocker.
I mean, bad.
Shocker. Okay. Well, I feel like that's kind of our take on it.
Yeah.
But I think it really depends on the person. You know, you got to do what's right for you and what you like. If you feel like you have a good connection, take it slow. Don't like make any quick moves of being like, okay, a couple months and we've got to see each other every day or this is not going to work out. If it's not going to work out, it's not going to work out. Like if you guys love each other, then dedication and being disciplined and coming up with a game plan, I think is the best way to go.
Agreed.
I feel like we have a lot to go over today on a Situation Unfiltered section.
I'm always unfiltered, unfortunately.
I know. We all are. Well, me and you are. When I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today with friendships, I really go to the evolution of friendships, how much my life has changed and my friend groups have changed from elementary to adulthood. I moved here in probably 8th grade. Yeah, it was 8th grade from Buffalo. When I moved here, it was just, well, we know someone, an acquaintance of ours now. I became really close with her. And then when we went into high school, it was just not a good fit. We were not on the same page. She got into some really bad groups. I love how we're laughing.
I'm following now. Yeah.
Now are you following? There's some people that you should not hang out with because they're 14 years old trying to hang out with 24-year-olds.
No point.
I just got to tell this story because
it's still fucking crazy. Tell the story. Yeah.
So their little Sydney is as what, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old?
Yeah, I think so, around that age.
So we just gone into freshman year. I was going over for a sleepover at my friend's house. Now we went to different high schools. So, you know, you haven't seen your best friend. You're just getting into freshman year. I go over there and she's got one of her other little friends over there who was a bad news bear too. It was over her grandmother's house, which I loved her grandmother, but she was kind of oblivious and naive to like what was going on. And they were like, okay, we're going to sneak out and we're going to go to this party. And there's like a 21-year-old, so they're going to have alcohol. And I was like,
I can't imagine that.
Is anyone using their fucking brains in this situation?
No.
Even as like a 13-year-old, I was still like, this sounds horrible. We don't know these people. They're 21 plus. We are 13 years old.
Who's thinking about that stuff at 13?
I mean, I don't know, but my family loved me. So,
I know.
you know,
Like we grew up very differently. Sorry.
sorry, but I'm not looking for outside love like that. It was just so strange to me. And so I fucking lost it. I flipped out. I was like, I already knew how this is going to go. Like, we're going to get in
Bad.
trouble. Like, you're going to get drugged. God forbid someone takes advantage of you. It's just like no
what do you do?
21-year-old should be wanting to hang out with a 13-year-old. You're not even talking about like a 17-year-old, you know?
No.
I just thought it was so strange. So I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I fucking lost it. I was like sitting there crying. I called my mom. I was like, I need you to come pick me up. I told her grandmother, I'm like, they're going to sneak out. I said, I'm done with this. I'm done with this friendship. And I left. And that was really hard because it's like I had just gone into high school. When I had gone in, this person that I was friends with had beef with another girl. It was like, you know, stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of set things off on the wrong foot for my high school career. There was this one girl who she just did not like me. It's a Danny DeVito looking bitch. To this day, there's not many people I dislike, but that bitch,
Yeah.
you know, the people who like try to call you out and call you ugly and fat.
And look at her now.
And we're, you know what, in our 30s, she probably doesn't even remember this, but this bitch has not forgotten that one. I'm just like, people are nasty. How insecure do you have to be?
Looking back though at that era of elementary school, middle school, and high school, and like trying to make friends and just the shit that like we did, even our own selves of trying to fit in with people or just fucking asshole kids.
Yeah.
So catty and so like, I don't even know. Like everybody's trying to find their place, but it's not going about it in the right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like I didn't hit my stride. I know for making, well, one, feeling comfortable in my own skin. Because I always felt like I was a different person than like what, you know, how I could dress. Like my mom didn't have a lot of money. We had no money. Like I couldn't join sports. I couldn't do multiple things. So I felt like I knew a bunch of people in different groups, but I wasn't like close friends with anybody.
A lot of my guy friends or a lot of my friends in that time were honestly guys. Like I had a lot of good guy friends. I still have a lot of close guy friends because fuck them bitches, honestly.
Yeah. My initial friend group in high school was just kind of like this mixture of just quirky,
different people,
you know,
from,
you know, and so like one was super popular with everybody, but not popular with the popular group. And I always felt like more preppy and stuff like that. But when you don't have money and you're overweight, can't
exactly.
You know, this is back in the early 2000s. Like, so there was like no fashion for anyone plus size. You were wearing some shit from Cato's or Old Navy if you were lucky.
Kmart in the Husky section.
Caitlin and I became friends, but she was a year behind me. So like we had different schedules on things and she was busy with cheerleading and gymnastics and stuff like that. And I feel like my senior year, like at the end, once I graduated, that's really when I got comfortable with myself on things and had I work. So I had more money for things. It was just a really weird time during high school for like building friends. But that Danny DeVito bitch, to this day, I know that I was not in that group because she was talking shit. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that.
Well, because you're obviously not trying to be the odd one out during that time. You know, you kind of like just go along and like don't say anything and just kind of like, oh, I don't want to be on the bad side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
and it's weird because, you know, I did so many different groups. So I knew a bunch of people and was like friendly with people, but I also didn't feel secure in myself. So like now as an adult, like being outgoing is so different. Like I learned that later. You just being nice is not going to get you friends. You have to be able to reach out to people and start building those friendships where I was just nice. So if someone talked to me, I like talk to them, but I just wasn't comfortable in my own skin.
Oh, 100% agree. And I feel like, especially for me though, a lot of my good friends are all friends that I've met later on in life.
It's weird because I have Caitlin and John. John, I met my senior year and John's my best guy friend. And then we had a group of friends in high school that I was friends with too. And we've just all kept up with each other. Actually merged in with Caitlin's husband, like where they became friends. So it's just like when we did Rob's surprise birthday, they all came back because like everybody was kind of out. But you know, so it's I've had those friends from like high school, college. Now there's that evolution where you start making friends at high school, college, and then once you get out of college, I feel like it's kind of harder to make friends.
It definitely is, and I feel like people are really set in their ways at this point in time in our life. Everybody has their set core friends. So trying to meet new people is hard, especially if you don't go out, and then trying to join a group even too. And the one thing I will say that I love about your group of friends or like you, like everybody's always so welcoming. Like everybody is accepting of new people and it's never like a weird situation.
Well, my immediate friend group that I've been friends with since high school, everyone's super welcoming on
Right.
things. And I think I had a hard time until in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Then I regrouped my friend group and took a look at who was around me. And I think that's also part of evolution. Sometimes you got to push yourself out of your comfort zone and find new friends. One thing I think is really tough is figuring out when you're with someone or you're friends with someone for so long, you forget why you're still friends. Is this something that is like we were actually still friends, or have we been friends for so long
And
that
it's
you're
like
just
you're complacent.
come
Yeah.
along? That's something I learned in the past couple of years. That's been a difficult one to grasp.
It definitely is, especially for us. We've been friends with these people for a very long time. And I think a part of evolving in friendships is also knowing when you need to like take a step back and cut ties and evaluate, is this person being the friend that I am to them? And is it really worth putting in the effort into a friendship or a person who's really not reciprocating that? And I think that can be really hard because when you spend so much time, you talk to this person day in and day out, they've been through everything, all the different stages of your life, really ups and downs, highs and lows, all of that.
Yeah.
And then it's, is this right for me anymore?
Yeah.
And, you know?
And sometimes, like I had that maybe about a year ago.
Yeah.
Probably recognized it about 2 years ago. But when I thought about when you're sitting down and you are with somebody and you're like, it doesn't feel happy.
That's how you know. Yeah.
That's how you kind of know. And it sucks. Like it's
That's
like you don't
horrible.
want
Yeah,
that
of
thing to
course.
happen. And I feel like as time goes on, it just comes more evident and evident, but you're trying to push it away because you're like, this person I've known since I was 15 or 16 years old. And it's hard to cut off relationships or know when to cut them off and say, okay, like this is not the type of friendship I want. It's a one-way street and not a two-way. And for me, that very much so happened with one of my best friends when that was a really hard thing to reconcile and be like, this is not a friendship that I feel like is serving either of us, because at some point you become almost bitter, like resentful of the things that you're doing for somebody else. And then they're not showing up for you. And like, we got to a point where, you know, during my divorce, that was just a really rough time. And I lost literally my best friend, my love, my child's father. And so you're going through there. And I don't think I realized so much that was going through that time where maybe they thought they were there for me, but they really weren't in my mind. And I didn't get the support that I needed during that time. And obviously it's not about you 24/7, but I remember sitting down at dinner with them and I really didn't like to like talk about
and like
my
air your stuff. Yeah.
Not because I was like ashamed of what happened. That wasn't my issue that he had an affair and left me, but it's something I didn't want to put on everybody else.
I get that. Yeah. You know who you are.
But I feel like I didn't want to put that on everybody else because it was a constant thing for me. And in my mind, I dealt with it from the moment I woke up to the moment I closed my eyes. It was just all
about that
for months and months.
I can imagine that.
But I remember we had sat down for dinner and I had mentioned something about the situation. I can't even remember because I like to black that
to
those
friend,
moments out. Yeah, to the friend of like something. And they were just like, are we still going to talk about this? I was like, yep.
Oh man.
But in that moment, I didn't have anybody else either. And we had been friends for so long. It didn't even hit me that like that until I look back at it years after. But I look back at things and we had gotten into some arguments and didn't talk for a couple months because I guess I just felt like in that time, I needed to be incredibly selfish. I had just lost everything, my whole life of how I saw it. Like I needed to just be about me in some regard.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like that's what a friend is for, is supposed to be there to help you in those times of need and pick you up and be there for you no matter what that looks like.
I didn't have Caitlin here. I had John intermittently because he was going off to college, but that other friend was just around when we were actively together all the time. But I don't think it was until I got older and I started to have different friend groups. Caitlin came back, or I met Jacqueline and Kelsey and Luis in their group and really realized what showing up for friends looked like. I was like, holy shit.
Like smacks you in the face. Honestly, it really does.
It does. And it's something that's honestly like heartbreaking
Yeah.
because I had to reconcile, like, here are people that I barely know who are showing up for like my things that like are going on in my life and asking me like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Or do you want to do these things? And if I would show up for them, they were showing up even when it wasn't really convenient for them, or they were just putting it as a priority. And then unless I was the one who was constantly contacting my friend or inviting them over or setting up things, there was no other side of
Reciprocation. Yeah.
And I think in their mind, they probably weren't doing anything wrong. I don't think that they probably recognized it, but I still realized that's just not the friendship that I wanted.
No.
And it was really hard. They texted me and, hey, I
Yeah.
haven't heard from you. And I was like, honestly, I just feel like this friendship isn't serving like any of us. And I don't want to have those kind of things. And it was just like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I'm like,
Ooh,
this is
that
somewhat
gets
like
me.
that got me because
That
I'm like,
gets me.
we're not friends of 6 months. Like we've been friends since we were
A
like
long
16 years
time.
old, ride or die kind of thing. And so that was a huge eye opener. I was like, if my best friend just told me like, hey, you're feeling like, I would have been like, what's going
What's
on?
going
Let's talk
on?
about it.
Let's
Like,
talk
let's,
about it. What can, like, what did I do or what happened?
Yeah.
Like anything.
But we weren't really a part of their life either. They were having life altering things and
Which I
like
think is
moving and doing
crazy
things and
that-
not saying anything
Yeah.
until everything was wrapped up and done. I just felt like maybe they didn't want me in their life either. But I just felt like convenience wise, it has to be going back and forth. Like you do all this stuff and I really want to be a present friend, but I don't want to be a present friend where no one's showing up for me either. So that was a hard one to do. I think by the time I was like, hey, I feel like this isn't serving any of us. I feel like I'd already gone through releasing that friendship probably
so
6
too.
months before that.
Yeah, you came to that realization. I feel like this really started when I first started working for you.
Yep.
It was on the cusp already.
Yep.
And I definitely remember like that whole thing going down and just like having that conversation with you about, okay, this is like it for you and all of that.
And I felt bad about it, but
Of course.
I think when that person reached out and that was what their response was, it was almost like,
it was shocking, honestly. I think for all of us, you kind of were like,
everybody was like, wait, what?
it didn't make any sense.
Maybe they feel differently about that, but communication is big in relationships, whether it's a friendship or like you're with someone romantically. And it's, if we can't communicate and we're just holding these chips on our shoulders about something that happened, it's not going to work. And you know me, I'm very much so, let's have an uncomfortable situation. Like I'd rather work through things and this is how I'm feeling. And I felt like when we said that and it was like, well, sorry you feel that way, and then nothing ever again, just strange to me.
I think people forget too that yes, it's a friendship, but like friendships are relationships and all relationships, whether that's intimate friendships or platonic, whatever the case may be, like they all need to be worked at.
You got to tend to it.
You have to, or it's not going to work. And that's a two-way street. And not to say that there's going to be points in your life where you're going to have to be 100%. I might be down for the count, or sometimes you might need to pick up the 30% and I have to be 70%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's all about how the other person reciprocates that for you.
I think too is that my relationship with my parents has always been very different than I think your traditional mother-father child relationship. And there were some things that had happened in my mom's past where I had to cut her out of my life. And this was right around the same time where it was just like, this is not, you're doing shit that's not beneficial. It's not good or healthy for any of us. And I'm just not dealing with it anymore. I felt in the moment, like if I'm going to cut my mom out, that's really when I started looking at all my friendships.
Exactly.
What was serving me. Was I showing up for other people and were they showing up for me? And I remember creating this list of who I wanted to be as a friend and as a person with Kaiten at this point. We talked, but it wasn't an everyday thing or every week thing. And her and I just had a lunch, had talked about something. And we looked at each other and said, we don't want to have the friendship where like we see each other twice a year or every quarter. So now there's so many times that every week I'll see them. I haven't seen them for a couple weeks, but like we keep up with each other and stuff like that. And like,
which is great,
talk about it, but we just looked at each other and we're like, this is not how we want, like, we want to be there and present. And we want our children to see each other in our lives too.
Which I think is very important, especially when you have kids, because they literally watch all of that.
They do. And I don't want Sterling to think that like, one, that he should not be there for other people, but that two, that he should not have friends who reciprocate love and care for him.
Even him, Sterling is a great friend, just from the stories that like
Yeah.
he's told us and stuff of how he handles situations. And he's literally a kid.
Yeah.
Like he's more mature.
Well,
I
we do
feel
beat
like,
that into
than
him. I beat that
you know,
into
you
him.
definitely do. But I just think that's very important. Like when you have children to
Yeah.
instill that in them to be a good friend.
It's rough when you just have to end those friendships. It's hard to let go of.
Well, it definitely is hard. I've gone through something similar very recently where I had to step back from a very long-standing friendship with me and this person. And our situations are a little bit different because this person did something that was betraying to me in our friendship. And I think that makes it a little bit harder for me, at least, because it's the way that people go about things, I think, too. I think had this person like gone about the situation differently, I think we would have probably been in a different place now.
Yeah.
But you still shouldn't have been doing what the hell you were damn doing. And
Well, it's almost, hey, I've wronged you. I've hurt you. Sorry about that. But I
Mhm.
didn't tell you. But now I'm telling you, so you should be okay with it.
I think if you cannot tell somebody something, you shouldn't be doing it.
When you have those relationships and you cannot talk to your best friend and tell them, like, grow a pair, stand up, be an adult and say, listen, this is what I did. It's probably going to hurt your feelings. This is why I did it. I love and I care about you. I support you. This isn't even about you. It's about me. And I need to be selfish right now in this moment. And I hope that you can stand by me. Maybe we can work out a different solution or something, whatever it is. Because there are moments like right now, there's been a lot of shit going on, work, family stuff, so much that I have not been able to be there for some of my friends in the past like month, 2 months because of my mom's health and other things. But that's just how it is. And like when I'm able to, I try to show up in every way that I can and take out like little moments of that.
I think it's the lack of
Open.
accountability. And of course, it wasn't even like we haven't had a full blown conversation after I said that I was going to step away from the friendship. But it's just the whole situation. Had you just said it from the beginning, of course, I would have been very pissed off at it. But we probably would have been in a different stage than we are now. But I also feel like truly I'm really at peace with it, to be quite honest. And as hard as that is for me to actually say it, because I obviously love this person very much, but I feel like that's how I know I did the right thing. And not to say that I will never be friends with this person again. I will say that I don't think it will ever be the same if we do decide to move forward at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I also think just over the past year, I think there's been a lot of pulling back and just the lack of effort from this person. And I think it's just been the right thing for us right now.
Do you think that had you not felt like that things had been pulling back over the year that you would have acted differently with this news?
No,
Okay.
I'm a damn Taurus and I definitely would have acted the same. I mean, betrayal for me is betrayal. That reaction is going to be the same no matter how you cut the mustard.
Trust is a big thing because when you start connecting the dots of like shit that happened.
I was literally just going to say that for me, because it's like that really is one of the major components in my decision to end this friendship right now is just, like I said, the whole situation of you're starting to look back and you're like, okay, all of these things or lack of things are all adding up and all making sense to the point where it's like you're lying.
Yeah.
And I don't stand behind that at all. I mean, we're fucking grown ass adults and this person is a grown adult.
Yeah.
And you know right from wrong.
I think that you realize that those friendships are gone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's important to foster new ones or figure out like who is going to be a part of your group and like what's important as a friend. What qualities do you want in a friend?
Exactly.
And I feel like one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is having different groups of friends that serve. I feel like I'm such a faceted person. Like there's times I like to YOLO and there's times that I'm like, I got shit to do. I'm a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that I've really fostered different friend groups. Like I've got Caitlin. We've been friends since high school. John, we were like, then Caitlin and I are moms, like the family group, her husband is amazing. We've known them since college. And then I feel like later in the life, the last 2 years, 3 years, Jackie, Jacqueline, Kelsey, Jenna, like that group I've really gotten along with. And we met through another mutual friend who's no longer like in that group anymore, but they're just like they're good, supportive women. Like we just did a podcast last night that was talking about business with Jackie. and her whole family is amazing.
They really
Everyone-
are.
Like all of the girls come from really great families who are like loving, but they're amazing women who are supportive and show up, and it doesn't like they're there for you always, even if it's not like convenient for them. And I think that relationship, like that group had really, and we have very different interests.
Yeah, you guys really do.
Yeah. Like they all like to read
And do
we
puzzles,
went-
and Sydney is
puzzles.
not a puzzle gal.
We talked about this last night, but
Did you?
my like slogan is book sucks,
Oh
you know,
my
because they read like 100 books a year.
Kudos to them.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But they're just good people, and I love being around them, and they uplift others, and they're not people who like drag people down, and they're just always like they're awesome, and it's refreshing because so often people are so much about themselves.
Yeah. And they will do whatever, you know, at the expense of another person, and just they don't even think about it. They don't think twice about it. I mean, I have my good friends, of course, my BFFs. I mean, Roberto, it just was really funny. Like I told you that I always say, Roberto, I've known Roberto literally probably the longest out of all my friends that I currently have. And I met him through my ex best friend from high school. They used to work together. And we've gone through every stage of life together. I've known him since 2009, I want to say. So how long is that? A long fucking time. A long time. And I mean, like close for a long time. And with any friendship, of course, like he's married now, he's a grandfather, all that stuff. And so, of course, we don't talk every day anymore. But at the end of the day, if I ever call him or ever text him, that motherfucker will answer the phone or text me back immediately. And literally this weekend, I texted him when I was at Jennifer's wedding, and he texted me immediately. And I was like, yeah, I know.
Well,
and then, of course, Jennifer, my best friend for life.
Yeah.
You have to meet her. You're going to love her.
I know.
Literally so much. She just is the best. She is literally like all that I aspire to be as a person. Like she just truly is such a good soul.
She looks like she has a good energy.
She does. I mean, that's the number one thing I always say to her. I'm like, she just has a light about her. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Like the way that she just affects people. You know what I mean? And just like effortlessly, like that's just who she is as a person. But she is a true ride or die friend for me. And I love her so much.
Well, I think also what's important is having friends that hold you accountable to certain
and that bitch definitely does. And that's what I love about you too. You definitely will say, shut the fuck up.
Need to shut the fuck up.
But it's just crazy, like touching on what you said earlier about how you met these new people like later in life who showed you how to actually like, you know, the kind of friend that you want to be and the kind of friend that you want to have. And it's like, I've only known you for 2 years, and I feel like
but
I know you
very loyal family.
No, we definitely do. But I know you would have my back for anything, and I would do the same. And it's just crazy when like you've known somebody for so long, and it's like a totally different thing with a new person. And you know what I mean? Like you have been a better friend in some regards than people I've known for a long time. It's very difficult. It's eye-opening, but it's difficult.
Yeah. But to kind of transition into the other thing that we wanted to talk about, family.
I
feel like with family and friends, one thing I've learned a lot over the past couple of years is to cherish the time and show up, like showing up for your friends, showing up for your family. I think so often it's easy to like write it off and be like, oh, I'm busy in this moment and I can't do this, or I'm going to be exhausted. But I have looked back at the last 2 years of my life, and they have been way more enjoyable and rewarding. I was
going to say fulfilling. Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that I look back at certain years of my life where you don't have that. And it's like, or I'm so busy. I've got to work. I've got to do this.
Or I'm not in the fucking mood.
Yeah. Or I'm not in the mood. I just want to sit in
a sweatshirt that says not in the mood, because that's my slogan, not in the fucking mood.
That's perfect for you. But I feel like it's so easy to just write it off and be like, okay, I'm not going to do this. And I think one thing I've learned in the last couple of years is like really dive into the YOLO mentality about showing up for people and going to experience life and cherishing your moments with your family. I feel like one thing, Catherine and I have been on so many trips together in the last like year. And like her friend group is awesome too. They're a fun group. And so I love hanging out with them. I feel like I say her friend group, but we've been close and have really gotten to know each other. And I love all of her friends. But I feel like taking that time to have experiences and moments and cherish that time with your family, because one thing I've learned over the last couple of years is like with my mom's health constantly, you just don't
You never know.
when that time is going to be done. And even in the last year or two, since my grandmother had passed away on my dad's side, me and my dad have started to like talk and rekindle a relationship
Which is
together.
great.
Yeah, it is. It's like, one, I think it's when you're a child or like you're younger, and I'm not someone who holds on to a lot of shit. I can get over it. But I think one thing that I have to see is effort.
I agree. Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, I feel like there's been a lot more effort put into that relationship. And I think as an adult now, I see so much of like why that relationship wasn't there and he wasn't involved. And it makes sense. You're like, oh, okay. Because now that I'm a parent,
I was going to say, now that
you see how different relationships were with their parents, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. But I think cherishing that time, and that's one thing I'm super grateful for, is kind of having like and rebuilding or building a relationship with my father and my mom in different ways. And my family, I feel like we're all very close knit, but I think so even more in the last couple of years of owning a business together. And it's hard when you own a business because it almost pulls you apart. But I think if you really focus in on what's important, you're like, family is important. At the end of the day, if everything fails, we're still going to have each other, It's so funny because when Catherine and I were kids, we used to fight like cats and dogs. And it was like this one summer, I think I was like 16 at the time. And there was a Kmart on Six Forks. Do you remember that?
Of course.
Okay.
We lived in that Kmart.
So this is when Dawn used to live in Northridge, and I used to spend like almost every weekend over my aunt and uncles. And even though Catherine and I would fight like cats and dogs, we still were like, okay, let's go play restaurant, or like, we could be over there. Like the third floor was like complete Barbie town, like everything. We probably had, like, looking back on it, $5,000 worth of just Bratz and like Barbie
Beanie Babies.
Oh my God. But Catherine and I were fighting in the car one day, and my aunt used to have like the Expedition, the Eddie Bauer edition.
Eddie Bauer, yeah.
The leather, and I used to think that was highfalutin shit.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, back in the day,
I know it was. But we'd be driving around, and Catherine and I were fighting and arguing in the back, and my aunt just had enough that day. And she pulls into the Kmart parking lot, and she's like turns around. And if you know my aunt, she is a nice Southern woman. But when it comes to us, she will parent all of us on the same. I'm not even her child. And she's like, I don't give a damn. You're my kid,
Yeah.
She unleashed in this parking lot on us and was like, shut up. Shut up. She's like, when we're all dead, you two are the only stupid fucks that you're going to have. Like, blah, 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 blah. And like,
it's so true though.
And we were just like, I think Catherine and I were, because she would whoop your ass. I mean, she would like, her thing was grabbing you by like the underarm and like getting your meat, and would be like, if you ever, hey Betty, how are you doing? Yeah, I will see you at the club later. Okay. If you ever fucking, so that's what we were used to, not like her like shouting expletive. And like, she was just like, shut up. I'm so sick of you guys fighting all the time. And that summer really changed things for Catherine and I, where we were like, okay. I don't think we fought that. Like, I went to Buffalo, I think, after that for a trip, and I came back and we were like
besties
kosher.
Yeah.
Like we were like, okay, I guess it's our time to like stop yelling at each other.
It's so funny and cute because it's like you have siblings, you have a half sister, right? But you weren't raised with her, right? But you have Catherine, so you have experience. And obviously I'm one of three and I'm the middle damn child. So you already know.
Middle child syndrome
does exist, unfortunately. But I think the thing for me, it's like all of us have different relationships, like me, my sister, and my brother. Yeah. And like growing up, me and CJ were like thick as thieves. I mean, we still are. That was like a lot of my life. I love me some Siege. But growing up, our sister had a little bit of a rough patch there for a little bit. So me and CJ really became just really close through that. But the evolution of all of that, now we're all really close. And my sister's pregnant again and can have another little niece. Yeah, it's very exciting. I think the biggest thing for me, though, with going back to showing up and being there and cherishing the time and stuff, but also it's about setting boundaries sometimes, because you want to show up and be there for every little thing. But then it's kind of like, okay, now you're like taking advantage, or you got to be like, I can't do this. I got to set this one out. And that needs to be okay.
Yeah. I think drawing boundaries is different because it's more so of like, you and like your parental figures having different ideas of what they think your life should be. When I got engaged to Adam, Dawn was not happy. I lived with her at this time too, because I lived with them, 2 years while I was going through college. And Dawn's like my mom to me too.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? So she very much so helped guided me in a lot of ways. But once I hit my 20s, I really knew that I needed to create a life that I was okay with and proud of.
Yeah.
And that I wanted. And I didn't want to look back and think, okay, well, I lived a life that everybody else wanted me to. And not that I took everyone's like opinions into consideration, but at the end of the day, I needed to do what made me happy. And when I got engaged, I mean, Adam and I got engaged pretty soon. I think it was like within 2-3 months, but I knew there was not a doubt in my mind. I was like, that's the man that I want to marry. Because I went from not thinking I would ever get married or have kids to like being like, this is my person.
That's your person.
She did not touch. It wasn't even that she liked Adam. She's like, I love Adam. I think he's great, but I think you guys are rushing this, because she really wanted she got married young, and she wanted Catherine and I to be like those single girls that were living it up and saying everything. Yeah. And so she's like, I just don't think this. I think you need to have that like life. And by that point, by the time I was like 21, 22, I had already lived a life of like a 30-year-old. I had worked 4 jobs,
really
going
had
to school,
paying bills, doing all that.
So I was like, I think there's something to be said about getting married at a younger age. For most people, it probably wasn't the right move, but for me, I really did feel like it was. On my end, I know it was probably maybe not for Adam, but I had already known. I was very comfortable with who I was and my decisions on things. But, and that's no shade to him, but just talking about in a general sense of I knew who I was. I felt comfortable. I knew I had chosen the right partner that I wanted to be with. But she was not happy about that decision at all. We didn't talk for like 3 months.
And you think that was just because she wanted you to be single, or what?
She just wanted me to not settle down that quickly. She's like, you're so young. I don't understand why you're settling down. I'm like, does it matter if I'm married or if I'm in a committed relationship? Like, it doesn't actually matter. You come to some point, it's like, if you're going to be with somebody and live that just as a commitment. You know, I had dated all the time. My uncle... I laugh about this because I'm like, this is kind of getting into the dating world, but like a new dude would come to the house and they'd be like, we're not even learning his name. Now it's a joke in my family because every boyfriend, if he's like around for like a month or two, they all get nicknames. And so,
do you want to share some? We'll save that.
Well, I mean, what, Wonder Bread? There's been two. There was a white bread. There was a Wonder Bread.
Gets me bad. Which one was white bread?
This one guy that I dated, one of them was a Saint Bernard because he wasn't very smart. I don't want to even say not smart, but every time we walk in, they'd be like, hey, you're the little Saint Bernard. I'm like, oh God.
Hey, Beethoven.
Yeah. So my uncle refers to that as tomcatting when you go out, like past 9, because his bed is like bed
literally
time is 9 o'clock.
What is up with our parents being like, if you leave the house at 8 o'clock, you're out there thotting and bopping in the streets? I'm like, that's a normal time.
I know.
I'm a grown lady.
When I was college, Catherine was in high school, so they were going to like this gala or something. They're like, will you watch Catherine? I was like, sure. And they were like, well, we're going to be home late. I was like, yeah, no, that's fine. I don't have any plans for tonight. I'll stay in. And they got home at like 8:39. And I was like,
we're like starting to drink and get ready at that point.
Well, literally, I was like, are you guys back already? And John called me. I was like, hey, I'm coming to pick you up. I was like, okay. I'm like, are you guys like staying in? And he's like, yeah, we're done. And I'm like, he's like, why are you getting ready? I'm like, I'm going to go out now that you guys are back home. And he's like, oh, you're going tomcatting? And do you know how late it is? I'm like, literally 8:30. Like, people are still eating dinner at this time.
Oh my God.
But yeah, no. So I think just building those boundaries of things and being like, okay, that's how you want me to live my life, but I need to live it a different way and live true to what I want. And sometimes you bump heads on that, but we love each other, so everyone will get over it.
Agreed.
I feel like I've never chosen a path that has led me down the wrong, where like,
I don't think so.
You can't live someone else's life.
No.
I've always like, anytime when I first opened my business, Dawn was like, you just have a baby. There's a lot going on. Are you sure you want to do this? I was like, yep. And I did that. And sometimes you just have to say, I know myself and I know where I'm going to succeed and where I'm going to fail. Or exactly. I'm okay if I fail. But your family wants the best for you too. And so I think sometimes they put like, they've lived life. They know where it's hard. And so they try to protect you from it. But I've definitely been somebody who's like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want to. And then I'm probably going to cry when it doesn't work out to you and say, Anton, help me. What do I do? Mom, love me.
Oh,
you know, like,
God.
I mean, that's kind of, but I'm like, yep, I already knew. Like there was a chance to fail, but it is what it is.
That's
I like a
how you
risk.
live, you have to fail to learn.
If you don't take risks, you won't live.
No.
You can't hit greatness if you're not
Yeah,
taking
I was going to say you can't hit greatness unless you take your risks.
And I can say that because I have a family who literally will go to the ends of the earth for me. If you don't have a family like that, then you'll probably end up homeless.
God forbid. Really unfortunate.
I have been lucky and blessed enough to have a family where I could take risks because I know that if anything ever happened, they would be there for me 100%. Like,
no, I definitely get that. And I think too, like from some of my experience, like with my family, like I lived with my family, my mom and dad until I was like 30. I'm going to be 34 now in May. Having that fear of disappointing them, especially with being in a job that I literally hated. Like my first job, I was there for 10 years and it was fucking horrible. And a huge part of me staying there was because like my dad's always really raised us like you got to work and save your money, work and save your money, work and save your money. You know what I mean? And so I never wanted to take that step to quit because it's like putting that burden of now they have to pay for all my stuff. I just always had that fear of I can't quit, even though I was literally physically, mentally, emotionally, I was so fucked up from that. But I finally had the conversation with my dad because he obviously paid all the bills and stuff. And I was like, I literally can't do this anymore. And he's like, it's fine. Like, I got you basically. And that was that.
My family would have been like, you better find another job before you quit.
Well, I mean, I did, but finally like breaking past that feeling of disappointing them or being a burden and just doing what's best for you.
Yeah. I will say I live my life very much so by my own rules on a lot of things. Like I'm going to make sure that I live and making decisions based off of what's going to make me happy. But I would be lying if I didn't say, like, my mom is so supportive on things and I never felt she didn't have these crazy standards either. So you don't feel like you had, like, I was never raised with that.
That's one thing my parents too, like with school and stuff. Like obviously they wanted us to succeed and get good jobs and all that, but it was never to the extent of some people that we know that's like, you have to get a 4.0, you have to get all straight A's or any of these like crazy standards.
Being raised by Mark and Dawn too, I watched my uncle really build a business from nothing. And I know that 100% really affected me and what I wanted to do as be an entrepreneur. But when you are raised with someone who's so successful and homegrown on their own success, like they didn't have anything and they built all of that on their own, you want to not let them down because they have been there and they have supported me in so many different ways. And so I always felt like that has been, I don't want to use the word burden, but that's always been on my shoulder of like, they're not my parents and they have done so much for me in my life. Like they have legitimately acted like they had a second daughter. There's not love that I have not gotten from them. There's every time they've shown up for me when I was going through something hard or just send me text, hey, I'm proud of you. Like very much so a child relationship, not their niece. And so I think that's been something that I wanted to make sure that everything that they invested in me, that I haven't let them down on that. Even though there's times that I choose my own way, that I want to make sure that I'm making them proud with the decisions that I'm making and what I'm doing long term, even if the short term doesn't seem like it aligns with where they want. But at the end of the day, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, this is a boundary for me. I can't live a life that's solely making you all happy. Or what was the point? Because you want me to be happy. That's why you've invested and done all this stuff.
Exactly.
And shown up for me time and time again. So I was just like, yep, that's my boundary on things. Like, I feel like if this is something I'm passionate about, everybody will get down and they love me and they'll see that later. What advice would you give to somebody for friendship advice?
I feel like communication, good and bad, I think is very important. And I think how your friend gives and receives like feedback and communication. Because if you have a friend who can't take honest feedback and gets defensive, that's not good.
Yeah.
I think a major thing is just showing up for that person, no matter like what that looks like. I mean, it could be picking somebody off the floor, crying from a divorce, or
I mean, literally John has done that multiple times.
Just showing up in good and bad moments for that person.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are showing up for your good moments on things.
And
well, it depends. I mean, if you have shicey ass friends,
well, they're going
then
to be like
they're
tearing you down.
oh, yeah, they don't want to show up for your successes, but they're
Yeah.
there. You know, so I think it's just finding the importance of the balance between the two.
Yeah. I also think finding friends who have the same fundamentals of friendship and like relationships that you do.
Loyalty is a big thing. Or like our family, we always talk about that. Like being loyal is one of the most important qualities.
Yes.
Because I think if you have loyalty, you're dedicated to communication, you're dedicated to those things. Even though they might not be perfect, you're loyal to them and you want to have a way to work through things. My advice, putting yourself out there for other people, making friends.
That is a good one.
No matter what age. There's so many different, you know, it's 2025. They have Facebook groups where you can meet people, go and do different things and like meet different types of people. And I think having not just one friend group, but multiple friend groups where you can be yourself, that version of you with them.
Yeah.
You know, like Jackie and them, like they're not out there partying. They're very wholesome. They love to read and do puzzles and shit. And I'm like shaking some shit up in that group.
Yeah.
But they love me and they accept me. I love that about them too, because I'm like, it brings me down and centers me. I think you have to find a group of friends that kind of fills each facet of you.
Yeah.
Unless you're just really boring and have the same, you have no other interest. Now it's like when you become a mom, everyone's like, well, you should just be a mom. If you go out and do these things, then oh my God. And I'm like, well, Sterling is going to be out of my house in about
when people
7 years. You know,
I think people forget that your life is your life and not anybody else's issue.
Live your life how you want to. Do you want more? What's one piece of advice for family? I like to say, I'm going to do what I fucking want to. Just kidding. But I do.
Setting your boundaries with your family and knowing that it's okay.
Any other piece of advice?
Yes. Love everybody for who they are. No, I'm kidding. Just cut that out. That was stupid.
I will say, I think there's something to be built on that. I think at some point, like, stop fucking harping on somebody who they are. Like, that's like going into friendships with us and being like, well, you're loud and boisterous. You speak your opinion. Okay. And I'm not going to change my whole personality and what makes me me. And I think sometimes as like a friend or when you're in family, like, it's just accepting that person and realizing like these are the pros to them. I think my piece of advice for family is just not waiting for a time to like
spend time
together.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Some of my favorite times are like when I just go and drop by my aunt's house
and you end up start just talking hours.
I'll just go, we'll do lunch. And it always just works out where my mom will have been over there and I'm like, okay, I have an hour to go stop by. And so then I stop by and then Catherine hears that we're all over there. Then she'll come by and then we just spend like the whole afternoon. Like we order lunch in and just talk to each other and like joke on other people. Cause that's what we do in our family. Sorry, but not sorry. Just enjoying the time, making like the best of each moment and like living life. That's one thing I think for my family. I'm definitely the one who's like, why the fuck are we just sitting around? You're literally going to spend the same amount of time indoors in the house at the computer versus us like going somewhere and going to do things. And that's something that we have really talked about. Like in the past year, I'm like going wherever I can go. That was one thing about dating Wonder Bread. That was awesome. He's like, do you want to go here? I'm like, hell yeah, let's go there. And you really get to experience different things in life. Just got to YOLO it.
It's so funny though, because I was literally talking about this the other day. And this is a story I literally tell everybody because I regret this to this day. Is because I'm not a YOLO person. You know how I am. I was invited years ago to go see Chris Stapleton, which you already know. I love me some Chris Stapleton.
He's so good.
Kieran and Michelle, BFFs, love you guys. And I was like, no, I don't know who the fuck that is. Because at the time I didn't know who that is. It was like literally 5 years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, no, I don't like country. I don't know who that is. And to this day, now he is like literally one of my favorite artists. I regret that so much because now the tickets are $1,000 fucking dollars before taxes and fees. I should have just said yes.
I should have just everything.
Gone. I did say yes to a Backstreet Boys concert. Shout out to Kieran. That was the best. Third fucking row. At a Backstreet Boys concert.
I will say yes to anything. If I have a great time, I have these amazing memories. If I have a bad time, You kind of just like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
At least you
But,
did it.
If you choose the right people to go with, you will never have a bad time. It doesn't matter if
Agreed.
they suck. You've got to make the most out of every experience. When you start looking for the bad, if you're like, okay, it's raining out, or it's got this, or there's someone who's bothering me, you will always find bad. But if you're like, I'm having a good time, I've got a beer in my hand, I've got people around me that I love, doesn't matter. I'll have the best time. I don't give a shit. I'll go anywhere.
That's why I love you though, because that's like stuff I obviously have to work on. But for real though, like that's why I love having you as a friend, because I feel like you push me to do things and open my eyes to like, I really do need to like live life and say yes to more things and not look for the fucking bad and shit and just be happy with it.
I think one thing is like when, not that I was doing this because I was married, but I look back at mistakes that I made in my marriage and I never did anything. I always made an excuse for something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Adam would be like, let's go to the beach. And I remember this one time. I was just like, fuck this, fuck the stand, fuck it. You know, I made literally the most miserable time out of it. I look back and I'm like, I never want to be that kind of person.
No.
Partner. And it wasn't even, it was just like one, probably postpartum. But I look back and I was like, God, I was literally not all the time, but I look back at things that I did. And that's where I'm like, no, you just got to live life, because I could have had the most amazing time on so many things. And I stopped myself from having them because I wanted to be, I don't even know why. Just wanted to have something fucking to complain about. It just wasn't enjoyable. And I'm like, what do I get out of this? When I was going through my divorce, you really have to reconcile a lot. And I was like, I didn't go anywhere. I was always locked in my house. I was a miserable fucking human being for not all of it, but certain things I was miserable on. What I want you guys to take, what you heard in this episode, is really hoping that you look at your friend groups and your family and they're people who you feel respected and uplifted around. If you don't, then maybe you need to go to the drawing board and write out a pros and cons list, because those are not people that you want in your life long term.
Pros and cons lists really do work though. It really helps you like visualize and process all the good and bad.
If you are unhappy the majority of time when you're with somebody, like maybe that's not the right friendship. I really hope that you guys got something from this episode. If there's something specific that you would like us to hit on, go ahead and send in your questions or topics that you'd want us to talk about. And if you really enjoyed this episode, I hope that you like and share and subscribe. Bye, guys.
Fuck that shit, listen, ayy, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, blessed every morning, just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it.